Likutey Moharan Torah Yud Zion from the second section. This is an extension. I feel like you guys need some more Torah about happiness. I feel like we left a little bit on a cliffhanger, so I wanted to discuss a little bit more about it. We're going to finish this tonight. There's another Torah actually I want to do tonight as well, which is really interesting. I know for sure Benny's going to have a very bizarre reaction that we can all hopefully videotape at the moment. We'll just flip it around real quick. So, is there a time, we're understanding from Rav Nachman that it's an avoda to be happy, right? You don't have it.
No, it's just lagging.
It's an avoda to be happy, right? It's not simply a good thing to be happy. It's like, for instance, I have to wrap tefillin. Rav Nachman says you have to be happy. It's like the same thing. And he says, in fact, if you don't wrap the tefillin, in some ways, in some very real way, that's not as bad as not being happy. Because by not being happy, that can cause you to not only not wrap tefillin, but not do any of the other mitzvot for the day, because you're sad, right? So therefore, being happy is of the most paramount importance. To the extent that you need to be silly, you need to make jokes, you need to hang out with your friends, you need to play ball, you need to go to the gym. Whatever is your thing that's mutar, that's allowed according to halakha, that helps you feel good, you need to do. And not just when you feel sad, you need to be proactive. You need to proactively cause yourself to be happy. Because we're learning that a very deep thing is this whole war between Yaakov and Esav that we're learning about in this week's Parsha is the battle between joy and sadness. Esav represents sadness, and Yaakov represents joy. In fact, Rav Nachman says the greatest joy that a person can have is when he transforms his sadness to joy. So he should see it actually as an opportunity. It's obviously a higher level, that when he feels sad, this is actually a greater opportunity to experience a higher level of joy. Because the highest level of joy comes from the... Okay, good.
Continue, I'm sorry.
Yes. Again, and I'm going to stress it, the way that Rav Nachman says a person is happy is through Yeshuv Da'at, when his mind is settled. And where do you get that from? Rav Nachman says the only way to get that is through Bodhi. So there's no way of moving around this thing. If you want to be happy, you have to do Bodhi. Okay. Now, is there a time that it's most important to be happy? Right? Even though you have to be happy all the time, is there like a specific time? It's like you mamish, you have to be happy. The morning.
When things don't come your way.
Things don't come your way.
Well, the way you want to.
Things the way you don't. Okay, they don't come the way you want. Okay, Benny, I wouldn't be busy trying to figure out the whole Torah situation. I'm just
Texting my wife.
Okay. So it says like this: Tzarich lezaher. A person needs to be zaher me'od. He needs to be very careful. Liot sameach, that he's very happy. V'tov leiv, he has a good heart, meaning he's not just happy, he's like he's joyous, he's happy, he's giddy. Okay? B'Shabbat. Shabbat. You need to be very careful, Rav Nachman says, that you're happy on Shabbat. Okay? Ki malot ukadusha Shabbat gadola vikara ma'od. Why? Because the advantages and the levels of kedusha that is drawn down on Shabbat is exceptionally great and precious. So now, where does this come from? There's a big discussion based on Yeshaya, because Yeshaya spoke a lot about Shabbat, and we learn a lot of laws on Shabbat from Yeshaya. Yeshaya says on this day, this is Hashem's day, right? He says on that day you need to restrain your foot, which we know means work, right? We learn from that work. And that everything from Shabbat has to be different than the week. Everything on Shabbat has to be different than the week. That means that your clothes should be different. You shouldn't dress the same, right? Let's say you wear a suit during the week to go to work. You should change something. Wear a tie, right? You have a tie, you don't have another tie, change your shirt. You can wear cufflinks. Do something different. Yeah, all day. Not only that, halachically, you have to walk differently. You're not even allowed to walk the same.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Just walk like a gangster.
You have to go like this as you walk.
Yeah, Shabbos was good.
You just walk a little slower.
You have to take small steps.
So that's why kind
You have to go slow. You can't. You're actually, it's a sword to take big steps.
Unless you're running home for Kiddush.
unless it's for a mitzvah.
Yeah.
So obviously in Shachri, you can't get up in the morning, like Avraham when he comes to class and he's just like taking his time, slowly.
Already being targeted. He's like, it's only been 9. It's only
I
been
got
9.
here earlier today.
I know, you look good today. You look like you had a better day today.
Felt like a little bit.
You had clean clothes on.
I did a bit of
No stains.
in the bitter cold.
Wow.
The Shekhinah's not staying.
You're not the only
And then I
one.
blessed the moon. Did you see the moon last night?
Yeah, do you see it tonight?
No.
It's amazing
The moon
tonight.
last night was great. It was like
You should know,
had a
last
crazy
night,
dude.
there were people who did Hippotadude for an hour that had never done Hippotadude for an hour before. Other people in the group as well.
Funny, I did it more than an hour.
I could feel it.
It's
bro.
last
true
night I
that,
started off like 5 minutes
I'm
into mad
tripping.
cold.
Tomorrow,
Ended up
it's
stretching
true
all
that
night.
tomorrow night comet is gonna pass it, like touch the air,
woke up,
and a
felt
lot of like
Outside.
it's
In the
gonna
cold.
light up the sky.
I've seen it with my eyes before with him.
Wow.
Felt like I was on Mach 1.
By the way, there's been a lot of anti-Semitic acts recently, by the way. 2 days ago, 12 people died in Jersey.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what he said?
No, it's more.
You know what he said on the
Then-
newspaper? It's my creator sent me to do this. That was tripping.
Wow.
When I read that, I was like, what? Who said that? The guy that killed him.
And then 2 girls got jumped in Brooklyn.
Okay.
It's crazy.
So you have to do all this different. As a reward, Yeshaya says that you're going to delight al Hashem. You're not going to delight with Hashem. You're going to delight on Hashem. So what does that mean? So Rav Nachman says elsewhere in Likutey Moharan, it means that the delight he's going to have from this level of making sure he's happy throughout the entire Shabbat, he is going to experience a taste of Olam Haba. If you can get yourself to be happy throughout the Shabbat. That's what it means on Hashem. Right? It's like something above, it's something transcendent. So in the Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, Rabbi Yossi says, what is the reward of keeping Shabbat this way? That you're happy throughout the Shabbat. You're spared from all suffering during the week. We're going to have to get to why that is. But if you could be happy throughout the entire Shabbat, you don't get angry, you don't get sad, you're mamish, excited, happy, like you won a lottery, right? That level of joy, then you're spared from all suffering during the week. Okay? It says elsewhere in Masechet Shabbat, Rabbi Yehuda says that Hashem is going to provide you with whatever your heart desires during the week. If you're happy on Shabbat. So if you do Shabbat the right way, right, and we see how deep this Shabbat sugya goes, because if the Jews keep to Shabbat, Mashiach comes. So obviously Shabbat is a very big deal. Now why? Part of the reason is based on the Zohar. The Zohar explains that all blessings come from Shabbat. Everything that's good in the world comes from Shabbat. Okay? Everything that you have during the week, let's say for instance you had peace with your wife that week. Let's say that you made parnasa that week. Let's say you found out good news that week. Let's say anything good happened to you, right? You had a Hippotadude session. You had a breakthrough spiritually. Where did that come from? It came from the past Shabbat. It came from the past Shabbat. Whatever happened to you, that was a blessing.
Everything that you experience, whether good or bad, comes from that Shabbat?
Yeah, everything comes from Shabbat.
So the prior Shabbat, that's what we're experiencing throughout the week.
Yes, and there were very big tzaddikim, very big mikubalim, that they knew how they were going to be throughout the entire week based on how they felt during the Shabbat. They'd be like, oh, this is going to be a good day, this is going to be a difficult day, right? They used to say it to their kids. Yeah. So we're going to get a little bit more into this, but you see Shabbat is a very big deal. Shabbat is the purpose of creation. You see it with the first word of the Torah, is Yira Shabbat, right? Have awe of Shabbat, meaning do Shabbat the right way. So you see this concept is the first word in the entire Torah.
It's like I heard it's a covering.
You heard so many things.
It's a Tony Robbins type of guy.
You don't have to hear this, it's in the Torah. It says this is a brit between me and you. Yes, that's true. You have to always have two. Very good.
Every 4 hours of Shabbat is a weekday.
Yeah. Don't get too crazy with it. Don't start thinking, we're not holding by this. Your main thing is just to focus on trying to be as happy as possible. Okay?
Happy like the hippo.
Yes, happy like a hippo. So it says like this. So therefore you need to be careful. Listen to what it says. You need to be very careful that you're happy the entire Shabbat. Because the levels of Kedusha on Shabbat are so great, like it's brought in Reishit Chochmah. So you have to understand. There is different books of Musar, right? Everybody knows Mesilat Yesharim, right? Chavot Levavot, right? All of these very famous Musar books. There is one that was written in like the 1600s by Mekubal, who learned under the Ramak, right? Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, who was the teacher of the Arizal, and he learned from the Arizal as well. And he wrote a book of Musar based only on Zohar. It's very intense. No, it's called Reshit Chochmah. It's very. His name is Rab. No. That was his teacher, Rabbi Eliyahu Davidas.
Sounds Moharan.
Yes,
He learned with Arizal?
he learned from the Arizal and he learned from the Ramak. The Arizal was given like the Ramak's position after the Ramak passed away.
Yeah.
For a little bit until the Arizal passed away.
The Rabbi that wrote Likutey?
No, the Ramak is the one who wrote who we have the 13 attributes of.
Of mercy?
Yeah, that Sefer, and we have Tomer Devorah. That's his. Okay. So he learned from both of them, and he created a Musar Sefer based on all of Zohar. It's very intense. It's not for the faint of heart. It's very scary. It's like a lot of Yira stuff. It's a lot of Gehenim stuff. Whatever. Rabbi Nachman loved this book. He absolutely loved this book. He said, Rabbi Nachman himself said, I've read like every Musar book, but Reshit Chochmah I read all the time. And it was known that he had a Seder where he like finished the whole Torah in like a year, and he did this every year, and he made sure Reshit Chochmah was a part of it. So he was reading this like every single year. So he says, if you want to know why I'm saying it's such a big deal to be happy throughout the Shabbat, look at Reshit Chochmah on the Shar of Kedusha, the gate of Kedusha there. And look in the beginning over there. Okay. And it's fitting and it's right. Lilmod b'Reshit Chochmah b'Sha'ar. You should read this gate. So maybe next week or something we'll look at it together. It'd be interesting. I never looked into Reshit Chochmah before. I know it's a very serious thing. What's that? Oh, not Thursday. I'm saying on a day that we're all together.
Yeah, Melaveh Malka.
Oh yeah, maybe then. V'lasum libo heitev al kol dvarim anemarim sham be'inyan kedushat u'malat Shabbat kodesh. Okay. And you need to pay close attention to everything mentioned in that chapter about Shabbat. Okay, good. Now it says, Ki yesh sham kama davarim pratim yikarim kedushat u'malat Shabbat. There's many different specific intricacies of Shabbat and its kedusha, its advantages, X, Y, and Z, and everything is talked about in that chapter, and all the separate points that you need to be focused on. One should understand the teaching well. And he says, "Kedei, in order, shitlahev libo, so that your heart is on fire, likabel Shabbat, to receive the Shabbat, besimcha gedola, with unbelievable happiness, va'atzuma kara'ui, and powerful joy, as it's fitting." Right? If you ever read about any of the Hasidic masters on Shabbat, it said that their students, like, they just were overawed by how happy they were. Just incredible joy, the way that they dance, the way that they sing. Rav Nachman says it's so important to be like incredibly happy that even if you have family member or friends over that like are not feeling it or like they're like killing the vibe, right? You're at the table and you want to start singing Shabbat songs and they're just like not. He says, Rav Nachman says you need to be very strong and bold and just sing away. Just keep going. Don't worry about them. It's like a test. You like it? And I'm sure we can all experience this. We all have family members who are not observant, whatever. But you should invite a couple who want to sing with you and just go crazy. And don't worry about it, okay? But and through this, what's the benefit of this? What's the ultimate revelation that comes from this? Yira Shlema. You get complete Yira. Complete Yira. And we know this is the goal of creation because the word Yerushalayim is Yira Shalem, complete Yira.
That's why singing and being happy.
All of those things, because joy and yira are unbelievably connected. In fact, Rav Nachman says one of the ways that you know your fear is fallen is if you're not happy. Right? When your fear increases, if that fear isn't bringing you to a higher level of happiness, which is not for any of us, so that means this is not fear of Hashem, this is fear of something in the world. But when your fear, like you have like an intense awe that you experience, like wow, I just realized Hashem runs the whole world, and you have like an inner sense of peace and happiness that comes from, that's holy year. David HaMelech talks about this. He says that he trembled in fear and he was so happy.
Sometimes is it the same thing as they feel it's a huge storm, it's raining.
Yeah.
It's like branches, and like, I hope these branches, I hope like God saves me from these branches, or God forbid it falls on me.
If it makes you happy. If you're happy, you know, clap your hands. That's how you know. If the fear makes you happy, it's a high level, okay? If not, it's a fallen fear. And this is like in general. So now you get perfected fear. Now what is it about Shabbat that allows your fear to be perfected on that day? If you make sure you're happy the whole time, right? So you see this is like another equation. Every single lesson is like an equation. What is it on Shabbat you can't get during the week, that if you're happy the whole day during the day, or happy the whole week, you don't get complete year. You can only get it on Shabbat by being happy the whole time. The reason is da'at, like Benny just said. What did we say in the last lesson? The whole reason why a person is not happy, suffers, okay, he suffers is because of a lack of da'at. And what causes a lack of da'at? That you're not happy. Because what did we say? That we said that when you're not happy, then your mind is constricted. Your mind is made small. But when you're happy, you're able to choose to think however you want to think. So that's why Rav Nachman says the main reason why people are not close to Hashem is because they're not happy. Meaning what? Their da'at is in exile. Their God consciousness is in exile. So by being happy, they'll come close to Hashem. And you see this very clearly when you go to Uman. There are thousands and thousands of people there with tattoos, with rings, with nipple piercings, you know, like the whole shebang, who have no connection to Hashem whatsoever, but when they're in this 100,000 people, Hasidim, secular, religious, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, and everybody's unbelievably happy, like he's talking about now in Shabbat, you see that they all feel so close to Hashem and they want to do tshuva. So you think, why? Oh, because they want a good time, and therefore now they found a good time with Rabbi Nachman, and now they want to connect. That's not what it is. Now that they're happy, they can think clearly. They couldn't think clearly before that because they're not happy. Do you understand? Gotta be happy. So now you know why it's a big deal to be happy all the time, because that's what allows your mind to think clearly. And you see this very clearly. Because why? I told you in the past that one of the markers for depression is you can't think clearly.
But happiness is subjective.
No, that's because our happiness is fallen. There's an objective happiness. Okay? Subjective happiness, which is what we have been taught, is things go my way, I'm happy, they don't, I'm upset. Right? So this is all based on the Sitra Achra. It's not real happiness. Happiness, according to the Torah, it's rooted in Yira. And when a person has Yira, then that happiness doesn't leave him. Because he's not shaken by anything that happens, because Yira means I know everything comes from Hashem. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the joy that we're looking for is not contingent on anything. Rabbi Nachman's joy wasn't contingent on certain things taking place during his day. He was happy because he was happy. Yeah.
If a person sends daily videos to a group of people, which is like close to a little over 200 people, right? And the person sends a daily video of Musar to all those people. Is that called Shevach Tzadikim? Or like do you get that to that?
You definitely get. We learned in another Torah that you definitely it's a big schut, but I don't know if that's Shevach Tzadikim. I think Shevach Tzadikim literally means
you're brought down to Rabbi Nachman.
I get it. I understand that. So maybe through him it's Shevach Tzadikim, but you didn't do the Shevach. You did something else. It's good though. You should do it. Okay. So during the Shabbat you get da'at. Why do you get da'at? Because you're happy. So we see this is the formula. Ready? By being happy all Shabbat, which you can only do on Shabbat because you're not worried about anything, because you have nothing to worry about, right? So by 1 second. So through that you get da'at, because now you can think clearly because you're happy. And then through da'at you perfect your yira. And this is the reason why only when Mashiach comes is yira going to be perfected, because he's going to bring da'at to the whole world. Everybody with me? Okay. What about during the week? So if Nachman says during the week your yira may be holy, but it can also include foolishness. Like it says in Eov, Halo yiratcha kislatecha. Your yira has foolishness in it. Meaning what? Your yira is based on your being a slave during the week. Because your mind is in exile, So therefore you're scared, am I going to pass this test? Therefore you're scared, am I going to make money? Therefore you're scared, am I going to get married? And what are all those fears rooted in? Sheker, a lie. That Hashem is not controlling all these things, that I have to worry for 1 second about any of these things. Right? And that's okay, that's normal during the week. Because during the week, Hashem has given the Yetzer Hara the ability to create a feeling of servitude in us. And that's what constricts our da'at, and that's what gives you free will. Because when your da'at is whole, you don't have free will anymore. Okay? Does that make sense? So due to the servitude, your da'at is lacking. That's called exile. The whole exile is that your mind is in exile. That's the exile. Okay? So that's why it says about Moav, like we learned last night, Moav has been at ease from its youth. He's never gone into exile, right?
And Ammon.
Right? We spoke about Ammon and Moav, that
they never left their exile.
And therefore when Achashverosh was asking the Jews for advice, they said, don't ask us because we can't think clearly because we're in exile. Ask them because they never had to leave their homes. So you see from there, exile means can't think straight. Why can't you think straight? Because you're in servitude. But when you're always at home, you're a free man. Okay?
Because you're not besimcha, you can't think straight.
Yes, exactly. That's what they were telling him. Because servitude and exile, they confuse the mind. But when you're not a slave, you can think clearly. That's why, according to Chazal, Shabbat hu cherut. Shabbat is freedom.
Because Shabbos is like an oneg.
Because Shabbos, you don't have to worry about anything because you all prepared all week for it. Now when Shabbat comes, you can't do anything. You can't even if you wanted to. Why? Because the week is Keneged Olam Hazeh, and Shabbat is Keneged Olam Haba. When you get to Olam Haba, you can't do any more mitzvot. It's done. You have nothing to worry about. You've done whatever you've done, and that's it. Now I can enjoy whatever I did. So Shabbat is 1/60th of that. It's a taste of Olam Haba, right? You with me? 1 second. No questions until the end, okay? It's okay. But when freedom exists, meaning Olam Haba, meaning Shabbat, servitude and exile, they have no place, and therefore Da'at is perfected. And the delight and joy of Shabbat are the main way to freedom. Joy is the key to freedom. Like the Pasuk says in Yeshaya, then you're going to delight in Hashem. Talking about Shabbat, meaning not during the week. You can't because you're in exile. You can try, but it's not the same level of joy you're going to have on Shabbat. And this is what brings freedom. Because Rav Nachman's big chiddush is not that you should look forward to being happy after you're free from exile. It's the joy itself which brings you the freedom. Meaning when you're going through the difficulties and the suffering, if you're happy even though, then you are going to leave those difficulties. You're going to get out of the exile. You're going to be free. And when there is freedom, then Da'at is perfected. Good? And so the fear of Hashem is perfect as well. So we have a connection. Freedom leads to joy. Joy leads to Yira. And Yira leads to Da'at. Sorry, I messed that up. One more time. It's the week. That's why my mind is a little... okay. So freedom leads to joy. Joy leads to Da'at. And Da'at leads to complete Yira. Right? Which is... right. Okay. That's why the first word of the Torah is Yirei Shabbat. Because the whole purpose of existence is that whole formula. And that's why we said yesterday that Mashiach's name, if you invert it, is Yismach. He will make happy. Meaning his job is going to make the Jewish people happy. So therefore, if Mashiach is the greatest revelation of godliness, Benny, come with your phone.
I'm not on it.
Come with your phone. If Mashiach is the greatest revelation of godliness, so how does the revelation be the greatest? When it's the opposite. So what's the opposite of Mashiach, Yismach? Sadness. So it's not a coincidence that we're living in a generation that's the most unhappy that's ever lived. It has to be like that. Because that's what makes the revelation of Mashiach so great. That he's going to make everybody so happy when we're so sad. Because Esav is killing us. This is the whole concept of Esav comes out first, meaning sadness comes out first, and then Yaakov, Mashiach, is holding on to his heel. Meaning in the end of history, the heel, when the sadness is the most intense, Mashiach is going to save us. That's why Yaakov means the heel, because he comes at the end. Okay. And when there is freedom, Da'at's perfected. Then when Da'at's perfected, you have year. Okay. And with year of Hashem, and there's no foolishness that's present during the week on Shabbat, so now you can think clearly. For the foolishness is because of the servitude. Right? We say in the Gemara that a person doesn't do an Avera unless he first has a Ruach Shtut, a little foolishness. But now we're learning, where is that Ruach Shtut coming from? The answer is exile. Servitude. So if you want to get someone to stop sinning, then try and make them happy.
What is it called again? Ruach what?
Shtut.
I didn't get the whole. I didn't get that whole.
But that has to do something with the blemish of the speech, no?
For sure, it has to do with blemish of speech, a blemish of grit. That's right. But part of the way that you get out of all of that is you first have to be happy. There has to first be an inspiration of happiness, and then you can start to work on those things. You can't work on those things if you're not happy.
Because then you have clarity, then you have dot.
Right, then you have dot, and you can start to work on it. Right? But through this, we raise the fallen fears during the week, right? During the week, what are we afraid of? We're afraid of our wives.
No, you're not.
We're afraid of the authorities. We're afraid of society. We're afraid of the police, especially if you guys are in this community and you're blazing all the time, right? You're afraid of getting caught. Don't get upset.
Like, you're literally telling my whole life story.
Why are we afraid of these things during the week? Because during the week we have a concept called shibud, slavery. Shabbat, that leaves you. Because Shabbat is a taste of Olam Haba. And in Olam Haba, there's no slavery anymore. So therefore, Rav Nachman's saying, be as happy as you can on Shabbat, because through that, you're going to perfect your mind. And by perfecting your mind, then during the week, you're not going to be afraid of anything. You understand? Because everything that you have during the week is drawn from Shabbat. So if on Shabbat you're thinking to yourself, well, what about the test I had this week? What about that girl what about this? What about that? Then you're going to carry that fear with you during the week.
And you'll have that fear on Shabbat also.
For sure, which is, just not pleasant. But we're seeing that Shabbat is like a pool of blessings, and it pours out into the 6 days of the week. So how you spend your Shabbat, that's what you're going to get during the week. So you have to be very makpid to make sure that you're very happy, okay? Now, Rav Nachman says, V'aklal, this is the rule. So Rav Nachman says, this is the rule. It doesn't mean this is a nice thing for you to do. You understand? This is a rule. Like, this is a mitzvah. You have to do what I'm about to tell you. You need to be very happy b'Shabbat Kodesh. You have to act very happy on Shabbat. You need to be very happy on Shabbat. It says, V'liv lila rot shum atzvut v'araga klal. You're not allowed to express sadness or worry at all. Right? Your son is bothering you. He's giving you a hard time. You cannot get upset. You can't. Shabbat. You can't be upset, you can't be sad, you can't be worried at all on Shabbat. This is the rule. Rather, what should you do? Lita negal Hashem. You should delight on Shabbat, because this is ayin Olam Haba, this is a taste of Olam Haba, or abot patanu gay. And you should actually go out of your way, based on wherever you're holding financially, to have the greatest delight that you can on Shabbat. So you should get yourself the best food, the best clothing, the best everything that you can afford on Shabbat, to allow you to delight even more. It says in the
double portion,
right? It says in the sages explain that your whole year has already been determined financially from Rosh Hashanah. So let's say you guys are all working right now. Half of you are working wherever you're working, the other half or the other half. Okay, so everybody's working. Avram, you want to come off your phone? So everybody's working during the week, right? Where is that money coming from during the week? It's actually all coming from Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, those 10 days. The amount that you're going to make is determined during those 10 days, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That means whatever you make during the week is just Hashem dispensing that out, whatever that total amount He determined, in different ways throughout the week. But He's not giving you more or less than that. It's already determined. So Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur is done. That's it. However, the sages teach, Chazal teaches, this doesn't apply to Shabbat.
What
This doesn't apply to Shabbat.
What do you mean?
Meaning the income is not fixed for Shabbat. So therefore you can still, pretty much Shabbat is like a stock. Whatever you put into Shabbat, that's what you get out of Shabbat. If you put more money into Shabbat, right, you buy nicer clothes, you get better food, you get more out of Shabbat, because Shabbat's not limited, because it's not based in this world, it's a taste of the next world. But on Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, that determines your work week money. But Shabbat, you can still change that. You understand? So you want to make more during the week. You can't change it anymore after Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, but you can through Shabbat.
So if you're supposed to make 100 grand, and you spend 20 grand on every throughout the year
Like
of
on the week,
Shabbats,
whatever is the most that you can spend without
on the
like
nicest
hurting
food,
yourself
nicest
financially.
wine, I'm gonna make 120 that year.
Theoretically, you'll be able to get more out of the year. Yeah,
So left body.
that's part of the delight. Is you don't have to worry about anything. You can live like a pauper the whole week, and on Shabbat you just have like a beautiful meal and you have really nice clothes, right? Because we have nothing to worry about. The Hashem's going to take care of everything. Obviously, this takes.
So this whole inning is done.
Yes, this is all da'at, and it's all amunah. Right? It's all based on amunah. Now, Rav Nachman says you should treat yourself to all kinds of delights: food, drink, clothing, whatever you can afford. Rav Nachman says there's 3 things that are a mitzvah gedola. I taught you guys this. One of them is that your Shabbat table is fully decked out.
Ice cream, lots of connie
What?
salads.
What's the other
The
two?
other 2 is to be happy all the time, which we're actually learning is a part of this as well. And the other thing is whatever you can know, you should know as well as you can. What does that mean? It means if I can't understand something in Torah, I should try to understand it to the best of my ability. That sharpening of your mind is a mitzvah gedola. But if you're trying to learn something you can't understand, it's above your understanding, so it's dangerous to do this, you shouldn't learn that at all. But whatever you can, you should learn as much as you can. That's a mitzvah gedola. But to have a fully decked out table, a shulchan aruch, a fully set table, that's good. The whole reason why it's called a fully set table is because this is a foretaste of when Mashiach comes. Because then Mashiach is going to put on a fully set table of revelation of God. So every food and drink and all these things that you have on your table, it's like a different new chiddush that Mashiach is going to bring in the times of redemption.
Korean food, Ashkenazi food.
Everything, fully set. So therefore, if you don't have it on your table, you're saying, I don't really believe this is going to take place. That Mashiach is going to come, redemption is going to come, right? Everything is going to come easily to me, X, Y, and Z. And Rav Nachman says Shabbat eating, he actually speaks about, we have never done it together, but he speaks about Shabbat eating in many different Torahs. He says it's an unbelievably high thing. You can achieve 3 things through eating on Shabbat that you can't do in any other avoda. He says during the week, the only blessing that comes from, the only good that comes from the food you eat during the week is the blessing you make on it. But the food that you eat has no benefit to you spiritually. It just gives you sustenance.
Except Shabbos.
On Shabbat, the food that you eat, Rav Nachman says, is completely spiritual. It all goes straight up for you. That's why during the week.
What about excessive eating?
Right, that doesn't apply on Shabbat.
What?
We learned that before.
We already learned that.
So ice cream galore.
But again, why are you eating?
What do you mean? Indulgent Shabbos.
Yeah, indulge in Shabbos.
I want chocolate flavor, vanilla, and strawberry.
Right, but I'm saying you should be indulging in the Shabbos. You shouldn't be indulging in your gut, you know? You see the difference? It's subtle, but it's different.
No, I don't see
Okay.
Are you eating it because you want to add?
Because Hashem says He wants you to be as happy as possible, and this is making you happy?
Yeah, definitely.
Or am I doing it because I have an insatiable craving for ice cream?
No, I died the whole
No, okay, whatever.
Shabbos is my
Right.
joy.
So the concept of excess doesn't apply in Shabbat. It only applies during the week. All these things that we learned about. Okay. It's entirely holy. It rises up to the highest places. Rav Nachman says elsewhere that during the week, whatever you eat that's in excess of what you need, then becomes a damager for you.
So instead of
It goes straight to the klipot. So let's say you need 2 slices of pizza to be full, you're good. If you eat any more than that, none of that is good for you, you, and in fact, it all goes to the klipot, and they use that then against you.
Some days it's different. You know, sometimes you want to eat more, sometimes you want to eat less.
Okay, so this is what Rav Nachman saying that you need to work on. Not me more or less. Maybe one day you needed one slice to be satiated. Maybe another day you need. But if you need it, that's not what he's saying. If you eat or drink beyond what you need, so Rav Nachman says this all goes to the sitra achra. It's not going to your stomach.
Instead of you getting sustenance from it gets sustenance from you.
Exactly. There you go. There's your Gedalia Fenster line.
It's either affecting you or infecting you.
No, you're separate from the whole human race. Did you hear what his question was? Sorry, I just have to. So does this apply to me also? No, you're. Yeah, it applies to everybody.
He said you can't have this unless you have 10 wives.
So whatever you need. If again, if the doctors say you're in a medical situation that you're in danger by being, so then it's a mitzvah to eat more. No, that's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying.
I'm on the way.
You're always gonna be a string bean. Just accept it. Don't worry. It's all good. Your wife is gonna love you for it. Okay. Now listen to what Rav Nachman says now. Listen to what he says now. Derech Hashem. What's the way of Hashem? La'abit ala tovot she'osin. He only, Daniel, don't kill me. He only looks at the good that you do. This is what Rav Nachman saying. Hashem only looks at the good that you do. Va'av shenimsa behem gam ken ma she'enu tov. And although that there is some not good mixed with it, Eino mistakel azeh. He doesn't pay attention to this at all. It doesn't mean he doesn't see it. He's not paying attention to it. He's only focusing on the good. You know why the Torah says that David had good eyes? He had beautiful eyes. It wasn't because he had amazing looking eyes. He didn't look like Brad Pitt. He was a ginger. He had red hair. How good looking can you be? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Ginger. You know what it means when it says that someone in Torah has beautiful eyes? It means he only saw good. He only saw good. You had a guy who was doing wrong. He goes, yeah, but look how hard he's trying.
This is exactly what they teach you in parenting. Don't look at the bad, only look at the good.
So
and
why?
call them out on
Right.
it.
So where do we learn that from? This whole that you look from the good, beautiful eyes. Where does that come from? Hashem.
That's his there.
That's his way.
You hear that? You're not going to hell.
So I'm confused.
Okay, wait. We'll get to your questions. We're not done yet. This is going to get into more things.
Sounds like heresy.
Hashem's way is only to focus on the good that you do. We're going to see how this applies practically in a second in terms of how he judges you. Although there is some good, not good mixed in it, he doesn't pay attention to this. It is an open pasuk in Bamidbar. It says, Lo he beat aven b'Yaakov. He's not looking at the sin in Yaakov. He's not looking at the Avera in the Jewish people. He's not looking for it. Mikol sheken she'adam asur lo la'abit. All the more so, you little Nebuch person, you're not Hashem. How do you have the chutzpah to look at the negative in another person? Hear what I'm not saying? Hashem himself doesn't look at the bad, and you're going to say, you know what, but I need to.
So that in itself is called ego.
Unbelievable guy, Rav Nachman saying. If you're looking at the bad in someone else and Hashem doesn't even do this, you should really check yourself before you wreck yourself. Yeah? You got to make sure you're only looking at the good in other people. Rav Nachman says it's a sur. You hear what he's saying? Wait. Okay, wait. Yes. Everybody needs the benefit of the doubt. And Rav Nachman says in many Torahs, you need to go to the most unbelievable lengths to find the benefit of the doubt. You see this guy is breaking Shabbat. Yeah, it's because he doesn't really know the laws of Shabbat. No, he knows the laws of Shabbat. Maybe he had a death in his family this week. No, he didn't. He's perfectly fine. So his parents aren't really... You have to go to every single length to look for the good. Rav Nachman says it's not bad to look for the bad. He says it's a sur. You're not allowed to.
So that's why Yitzhak
Even if
loved
they do
Esau?
bad?
Yes, even if they do bad.
In the Torah, that's not the case.
Why? Yitzhak loved Esau.
Wait. I don't need any commentary from you guys. I need you to just listen, and then at the end you can have your questions. Rav Nachman says, Mikol Sheken, all the more so. Hashem only looks for the good. You have to. It's a sur. You're not allowed to look at anything negative in a person to find specifically that which is not good or to search for his shortcomings. and specifically within religious devotions. When a person is trying to become closer to Hashem, then all of a sudden you notice when this guy's not. Right? This guy's got the knitted kippah instead of the black kippah. This guy is trying to teach others. He himself is not learning. You know, you're always looking for the negative in others. This is the Yetzer Hara mamish. You have to look for the good as much as you can. On the contrary, Rav Nachman says, you're obligated, mechuyav. You have a chiyuv. You have an obligation to look and focus only on the good in other people.
That's crazy.
Okay. So now listen to what Rav Nachman says. L'zeh tov v'gedola sheyesh teva v'hashgacha. This is the great advantage in there being both nature and hashgacha pratit. So we need to understand this. There's two ways in which Hashem relates to us. How He runs the world with each of us individually and collectively. There's two modes, so to speak. You know, like for instance, when an NBA player, right? There's like the during the game, and then there's like the end of the game, right? There was Michael Jordan during the game, and then there was when everything was on the line, there was him at the end of the game. So too, Hashem has two main ways in which He relates to you. They're called nature and teva. One chiddush we're learning from this is that nature is not a system which runs at its own. It's also a form of providence. Hashem is using and hiding Himself within nature. So let's say there is a rain or a thunderstorm, so that looks like, and whether man can predict that. That doesn't negate the fact that Hashem is causing it. He just allows it to go through the laws of nature. That's one way that Hashem wants to work with you and in the world. Another way that Hashem wants to work with you is called hashgacha pratit. That means that Hashem is directly, intimately guiding you outside of the laws of nature. Okay? Rav Nachman says, yes, when a person does good, Hashem directs his life according to hashgacha pratit. Meaning, when you follow the Torah, when you learn Torah, when you live according to the Torah, Hashem does not, He does not provide for you, and He does not run your life according to nature anymore. Everything now is Hashem's divine providence. But when He does not do good, Hashem removes divine providence and He allows His life to go according to nature. So you're going to say, well, that sounds cruel. Sounds a little bit cruel, no? But you're going to learn, actually, this is a very big kindness from Hashem. You're going to see why in a second. Hashem leaves him to nature because only through leaving him to nature is there a possibility that good can come to him when he's not doing good. Meaning what? When Hashem does hashgacha pratit with you, everything is based on what you're doing. So therefore, if you do good, He does good with you. If He still kept that system with you, when you're doing bad, He would do bad to you. And He doesn't want to. So what does He do? He leaves you up to nature instead. So therefore, you could still possibly get good, right? You're not doing good, but your health and your money is still good. So that's one of the reasons and one of the answers why people who are not doing good, they're not following the Torah, they're still doing well, physically or financially. The reason is because Hashem is not living with them in a hashgacha pratit. He's actually only doing them according to the laws of nature, and through that, it's like a random lottery system. Anything can happen to you. But when you do good, Hashem is now giving you hashgacha pratit. One of the outcomes of this is that, let's say you're not following Torah. So yeah, for sure you need to sleep 8 hours a day and you need to eat healthy, because what happens if you don't? According to the laws of nature, you're going to be sick. How do you explain that the Lubavitcher Rebbe and all these people, they didn't sleep at all? They mamish never slept and they were healthy until they died, for the most part? The answer is they're not going according to the laws of nature anymore. They're living with the Shem's hashgacha, which is above the laws of nature, so they don't have to worry about any of these things.
They're not limited to the laws of physicality.
Yes.
What about Rabbi Nachman? That
Also, so then this is for another reason. It's a tikkun, whatever it is. But his life was not guided by nature. He didn't get sick because there was a natural occurrence that led him to become sick. Hashem made him sick for whatever reason. It must have been for the good of everybody. Okay. But in general, if a person is not learning Torah, he's not holding himself by it, so whatever happens to him is not because Hashem is doing this necessarily for him to come. It's nature. But let's say, for instance, I start to want to do tshuva, right? I want to come close to Hashem. I start to learn. But all of a sudden, difficulties start to come into my life. That must be good for me because that's Hashem's hashgacha pratit. Or the good that actually did happen to me, I earned that good. Versus before, it was just according to nature. Everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay.
I get it. I feel like you should put it on a chart. I feel like there are people who can be confused by this.
Do you guys understand this or no? I think it's pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Okay. For if there was nothing but hashgacha pratit, then hashgacha pratit might actually be eliminated from the world because we don't deserve it. This is because when Hashem would see a person not conducting himself properly, he would become angry, Hashem says, and he's going to remove his hashgacha pratit from him. And then if he doesn't have that, but he's not going according to nature, you're left with nothing. So therefore, he gives him over to nature. He gives him over to Elohim. This is why many times you see people who are Balei Tshuva, before they become Balei Tshuva, they have good health, right? Things are going well in their life, and all of a sudden they want to come close to Hashem, and all these difficulties start to come in them. Because before this, you're going to according to the laws of nature, and anything is possible for you. But now that you're doing good, so now all of a sudden Hashem is actually going according to what you're doing.
So now you're quote unquote on the derech?
Yeah, now you're on the derech, and therefore you're on the clock. And because you're on the clock, and you're still very far from Hashem, even though you just started to do good, so Hashem is judging you according to that. That's why you experience many difficulties when you start. When you learn Torah, and you go according to it, and you grow, and you purify, you're going to see as time goes on, things become easier for you.
No, but he's just trying to speed up that process for you.
Yeah, it's also good. Hashem, the whole point is this is an amazing hiddush that Hashem never does bad to you. How does He never do bad to you if everything is according to reward and punishment? The answer is because sometimes He removes reward and punishment and leaves you up to nature, so you could still possibly receive good. So He never allows a person not to have the possibility for good, no matter what he's doing. It's an amazing chesed. It's a lot of love. A whole lot of love.
So it's like instead of throwing you into prison, they just leave you outside. But if you do good, then give you.
No. No.
What do you mean? How am I wrong?
Okay. Let's say you're this bottle. Okay?
Make it visual.
I'm trying to think. Okay, I got a better one. Let's say, for instance, Avram, put your phone away. Let's say, for instance, you are, what's the word? You are not engaging in safe sexual practices.
Damn, what an example.
Just listen.
What's a safe sexual practice?
Being with your wife and she doesn't have a disease. Okay? Let's say you're not engaging in that. Let's say you're engaging in unsafe sexual practices. So you're not married and you're going to parties and you're hanging out with many different women. Okay? So now, because you're not following halakha, if Hashem guided you according to hashgacha pratit, you have to get a disease. Because that's what you deserve. So what does Hashem do to protect you? He lets you go according to the laws of nature where you could or you could not get a disease. And that way, for the meantime, while you're not doing tshuva, you still could possibly be okay. And then when you start to do good and you start to do tshuva, so then Hashem starts to guide your life according to how you're acting. You understand what I'm saying?
And it gives you disease.
Based on what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever He wants you to pass through. Not based off nature.
Yes.
So a person who lives life on hashgacha pratit, nothing bad can happen.
Right.
So even if, God forbid, a person gets a disease, but if he's on the hashgacha pratit, then it must be for the good.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So you know for sure if you're trying to do what Hashem wants and difficulties are happening to you, this must be a tikkun for you. What do you need?
I was thinking.
It doesn't make a difference. It was a great mashal, by
How
the
do we do
way.
it where it could be ashgacha pratit, but we pass away a good death, you know? Or we pass away in the sleep. 120 years old.
What?
How do we get there?
What are you talking about?
Why pass away in ashgacha pratit with a disease when you can pass away a good?
Okay, you guys are too focused on the disease. You should just stop hanging out with those girls that you're hanging out with when you're not here. And we don't have to worry about all these things. Shouldn't give me the same one. Okay, guys, that's the end of that Torah. Before we have questions, Actually, ask questions quickly.
Why did Yitzhak love?
No. Next question.
Alex, that's the question.
I'm just kidding. Go
Why
ahead.
did Yitzhak love Esav? Is it because of this concept that he was always looking for his
That's
good?
right. He only saw the good in it. But that was
But
also.
he was a Russian.
What about
He got punished for it.
Yeah.
what about Amalek?
But why?
Right?
What?
Amalek did only bad. He went against Hashem. Hashem never saw the good in him. He only mentioned that he's a Russian, that he's this, he's that.
So I think he's referring to Jews.
Yeah.
Okay, so explain to me, please.
I don't like the way that you're asking this question.
David, right?
And I don't know how to explain
He saw,
anything.
he saw,
Batsheva.
Bathsheba, taking a shower, and then he did whatever. And then the wife of Bathsheba, right? He went to kill him, let's say. But Hashem punished him. He killed the kid. Also, the sword didn't. Nathan came and said, "Okay, the sword is not
Okay,
gonna
but the
leave your
Gemara
house."
also says clearly that Hashem forced him into that situation.
No argument.
I'm not
But-
saying anything.
no.
There's no buts.
No. But you see that
Don't
is-
but.
You see that he did something, and he got a reward. He got a punishment.
So I'm trying to explain that all of that was for us, and it's much deeper than we can possibly understand.
But in the whole Torah, not just him, the whole Torah.
I
has-
hear what you're saying. Listen to what I'm telling you. Rav Nachman is saying, and he's not saying things for effect. He's telling you Hashem only looks for the good in you. He's only looking for the good, whatever that means. Okay? This is just a fact.
Like looking at World War II,
Jews.
so we look at like getting Israel as an award from that.
First of all, these things are way above our understanding, right? Things like the Holocaust. For me to sit here and tell you why it happened, you would be ignorant, and it would be insensitive. And therefore, I know you probably listen to rabbis who explain it away. It's an issue, okay? I don't hold by that. I'm not here to explain the Holocaust to you. But I will tell you that for sure the Gemara says very clearly that the greatest chut is to die al Kiddush Hashem. And every rabbi agrees, whether you're secular, you're religious, no, everyone who died in the camps died al Kiddush Hashem. And they're sitting in the highest place in Shemaim. So, yeah.
So in the beginning of the show, you mentioned that if you spend Shabbos with happiness,
Yes.
right? It removes all suffering from during the week.
The Gemara says that.
So it removes even suffering, like there's suffering through Yisurim, like through like in a bad way of suffering, and like the suffering from love that God gives you.
Yeah.
So even that that suffering is removed.
I'm not sure, but it sounds like in general suffering. He didn't make a distinction. He didn't make a distinction, yeah.
I don't understand when you say.
Speak a little louder, because a little loud. Avram, do you mind moving in a little bit? You sure? You good?
So this is what I wrote. Let me know if it's right.
Yeah.
When being happy during the difficulty,
Yes.
this makes you automatically leave the difficulty, and that leads you to that. Whenever you're happy throughout your hardship, so that already is your.
That's your way to get out. That's one of the reasons why Rav Arush says you should thank Hashem for all your difficulties, because part of the reason is you'll be happy in spite of the difficulty, and that's going to cause you to leave the difficulty. That's why a lot of people experience themselves leaving those difficulties through thanking Hashem. It's actually because they're maintaining happiness even through the difficulty.
Does that lead to God? And that leads
Yeah,
to
that
Yira?
yes.
That you're looking for Hashem.
And also, you said having ruach shtud is due to a person is in exile. What does that mean?
So, what's the reason why a person sins? It's only because he lacks
Clarity.
consciousness. He lacks clarity in his life. Because if you could see very clearly what happens to a person when he does an avera or when he does a mitzvah, so nobody would ever do the avera. So obviously the sages say it must be he has some type of foolishness, some ignorance, something that's stopping him from understanding clearly. So where's that coming from? We're learning that the greatest reason why a person is not able to think clearly is because he's not happy. So if Nachman says that you have to make sure that you're happy to make sure you can think clearly. And not thinking clearly is called exile. So that's the cause of all suffering.
So what made the whole Am Yisrael not think clearly whenever they went to the midbar? To the
Baruch Shtut.
all of Klal Yisrael?
Yeah, sure.
I get it when it's one person, but the
All of
whole
them.
Am Yisrael, now one person said, hey, maybe we're doing something wrong.
The Ruach Shtut became very big because the Yetzer Hara became very big. Because they became very big. That was the biggest generation that ever existed. So the Yetzer Hara became very, very intense, especially at the end. Okay, we have to move forward because I really want to do the second tour. It's a very short one. I want to do it before Shabbat. It's very interesting. It's very different. It's very short. Okay, we're going to go into it, and if we have time at the end, we'll do your question, okay? Now, listen to this. Very, very, very interesting. Likutey Moharan, Simon. You want to start this? Hook me up. Get me in there.